Let's start the show with two stories that bring into sharp focus how government gets its money and how that money is spent. Our record high fuel prices were debated in Parliament this afternoon, with proposals to slash the taxes and levies that we pay with every litre. Those taxes, and others of course, help government keep our roads and communities working. But as we will see, that money is not being well spent. The Auditor General today telling us that 3 out of every 4 municipalities don't even have a functional financial system in place. We'll have more on that angle with our reporter Aviwe Mtila in just a moment. But let's start in Parliament, where Lindsay Dentlinger has been watching that fuel debate. Good afternoon to you, Lindsay, and also to you, Aviwe. So, Lindsay, let's start with you because there were some interesting proposals. The Democratic Alliance talking about slashing the levies and taxes on fuel drastically.
They are, Sally. So part of those proposals they put on the table this afternoon, as you pointed out, is to slash the fuel price by at least R6 a litre. And to do so, they reckon government needs to do away with the general fuel levy, which is that money you've just referred to, that government uses to provide the services to its citizens. In the case of the fuel levy, that's up to R90 billion a year that goes into state coffers, and also to get rid of that levy, they say, that goes to the road accident fund, because as we know, that is also a very poorly managed system, and the DA contending that many people have personal road insurance, and so why are they being taxed doubly at the pumps? And it's their contention that just because the taxes are so easy to collect from the fuel price, and that is why government insists on these levies, which they reckon are not necessary, and they could get rid of them if government was also better at rooting out corruption. Here's the DA's leader, John Steenhuisen, during that debate this afternoon.
R6 per litre. That's how much more our citizens are paying for petrol, more than countries like Botswana. We have the same problems that the Honourable Azipo outlined, and they don't slap on the tax because they understand. We need to recognise the urgency of the situation now. We need to slash petrol prices now, and we can afford to do it. We can afford to do it if we get tough on corruption. We can afford it. If we eNCA the deployment, we can afford it. If we slash the VIP protection budget, we can afford it. If we close failed state-owned entities, we can afford it. What the ANC can't afford is to keep ripping off ordinary South Africans, because we are gutful of having to pay the price for your corruption. We also need a president. We also need a president of this country who's got a full-time focus on running the country, not one eye on his business and one eye on his farm, full-time serving the people of South Africa.
And Lindsay, the debate started with fairly robust comments, people weighing in, and one could actually follow the line of reasoning and the suggestions being made. But things did deteriorate at one point. Tell us what that was all about.
Well, you heard in that clip there, Sally, really the DA leader, John Steenhuisen, the first of the opposition parties to use this afternoon as another opportunity to take a swipe at the president and what has now become known as the Farmgate scandal. And it was no sooner than John Steenhuisen made those remarks that the EFF followed a similar line, saying that the president was involved in money laundering and illicit activities, and that's where things started to denigrate. And at least 15 minutes of that debate stalled while the Deputy Speaker, Letshiya Tsenoli, tried to get order, tried to get the MP to retract the comments, which she refused to do. And we almost thought there would be scenes reminiscent of what we saw on Thursday and Friday if the MP did not withdraw the remarks. But eventually she decided to leave the House of her own accord, and the House was spared losing its decorum once again, is what we saw last week, and that debate was allowed to continue. But here's a little bit of that ruckus this afternoon.
South Africa faces big problems because of unaffordable fuel price hikes. This is because ANC ministers and their families, friends and comrades want to steal as much as public money as they can. When former Minister of Energy, Ms. Kubai, admitted that the country's strategic fuel stock was sold in a corrupt secret deal in 2016, the EFF was the only party that said arrest the looters, including Ms. Tina Jumat-Peterson. We said that because we understood that the shifts and changes in geopolitics and international trends. But because Glencore and the corrupt criminal syndicate that operates through bribes and illicit financial flows was one of the beneficiaries of the loot, no one has been held to account. It is the same Glencore that benefited Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa in deals for political leverage.
All right, so I'm not seeing the arguments in that particular clip. Of course, she's making some pretty wild allegations there, but as you say, things did descend thereafter. But Lindsay, let's get back to what the DA is suggesting, to actually slash those taxes, take off R6 a litre. I mean, every consumer would welcome that. The big question, of course, is it's already built into our fiscus, so how on earth could we afford it? John Steenhuisen saying, well, yes, we can if we get rid of corruption and cadre deployment. So what did the Energy Minister have to say in response?
Well, the Energy Minister saying government's really doing everything it can. We know that they have put a hold on a R1.50 per litre of the general fuel levy for the past few months, and that's eventually going to be reduced to 75 cents a litre. But the Minister rather putting a lot of the challenges he says South Africa is facing, that it's not just domestic problems, but they stem from global challenges, most notably right now the conflict in Central Europe. The Minister also saying that if South Africa was allowed to proceed with more oil and gas exploration, so we might be a little bit better off in being able to pay less for our fuel. So taking a swipe there at court cases that he said were going on for quite a long time and stymieing those plans to search for alternative energy sources closer to home. But the Minister also saying he's not in charge of taxes. He has no say as to how much is levied and taxed on fuel. That falls outside of his ambit. And also saying that the DA's proposals were too simplistic, Sally, and that there were many more factors that had to be considered so that they were more effective in the long term. But here's Minister Gwede Mantashe.
Recently, our ministry, together with the Treasury, reduced the fuel levy by R1.50 per litre. It's not by R1.50, it's by R1.50 per litre. It makes a big difference because when you just say R1.50, you think that we just give R1.50. It's R1.50 per litre. And we're continuing with that for 3 months now, and we've already agreed that at least at best in July, we can sustain 75 cents now. Now, where does that money come from?
Yeah, so those are the big issues that have to be addressed. We know that government is looking into what to do to ease the burden of that fuel price. Lindsay Dentlinger from Parliament, thank you very much for that update.